learning to tie my shoes, tiny fingers fumbling to form bunny ears,
playing pool in the living room and beating my uncle every time.
Back then, these were accomplishments. Now, not so much. I leave my laces in a near constant state, being dragged on the ground, because for 11 days, I didn't have shoelaces. The mental hospital was afraid the strings would come out anyways.
March 4th, 2008, we didn't play pool that day. My uncle laid in a hospital bed, head the size of a balloon.
People tell me this is the biggest world they've ever seen. But with so many prisons, I just can't agree. I don't know what I thought a mental hospital would look like, but there were no straitjackets or padded rooms. The walls weren't stark white, nor the only sound white noise.
My uncle was one of the many boys in his neighborhood who got caught up in quick cash, drugs, and violence. We saw him many times through thick glass windows.
Prisons meant to keep us apart. My sister, being too young to join my parents for visitation, set up for phone calls every day. I tell about art group and what I ate for breakfast. She tell me about her father, how he persisted to display his frustration about me being hospitalized, proclaiming that God heals all.
My uncle did well the last time he got out. He wasn't like 50% of recently incarcerated men that didn't have jobs, and he wasn't like many ex-cons who settled for minimum wage. But he was like everyone else whose risk for suicide became 13 times greater the second they walk out the prison gates. Because in prison, it's easier to shape your body
than reform your mind. Every time I thought about being discharged, felt like a balloon filled with too much air. Like there was all this pressure inside my body and my skin wasn't big enough to hold it all in. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to partake in the waiting one-sided screaming match with my father.
When my father took me to the hospital, he drew back a cold blue curtain and told me to say my goodbyes. My uncle laid there, head wrapped only good enough to cover the bullet hole, still attached to machines, struggling to keep him alive,
trapped in our separate cells. But I didn't return home because the point of the mental hospital wasn't to make everything better. They weren't expecting me to do a complete 180. They were just trying to stabilize me to the point that I was no longer actively suicidal. On the 11th day, when I was discharged, they gave me a great tub filled with my possessions, among them my shoelaces.
When I said goodbye to my uncle, I hoped that something in his brain was working well enough to hear me, but I would never know why he killed himself. So now I help his sons place handmade stepping stones next to his grave, and I wipe their tears at faint memories of a man they will never know. But one thing is for certain. My uncle, my father's brother, is gone.
Prisoners of ourselves.